You are also Rockstar, right?
More or less.
So, Stefan is Java Rockstar, Java champion as well, and he organizes Java conferences. I know him for 12 years at least, and it's like crazy. So he's traveling around the world, seeking for speakers and inviting them to conferences. So thank you for your work.
You're very welcome, man.
But what Stefan said was a little bit strange. It's like, Axel, where is Axel? Axel? He's working. Stefan said that Axel reminds him of his wife. I have to say, as Andra, I thought Axel was like, okay, and Axel is nice guys, but I have doesn't remind me at all of my wife. So, what happens with Axel? He asked me about an interview before the conference, and I got lots of nice questions. So we recorded the interview and pushed it to YouTube. It has been somewhere around. And I asked him at the end of the interview about, what makes some background of domain-specific languages in Romania. And I was in Cluj. Who is from Cluj? And I started with Dracula, and they said, stop it. No one cares here about Dracula. And then we built, I think it was 5 years ago, distillery. And I forgot the names. And Axel told me there is Horinka, then Palinka, and there is Suitka. But Suitka I shouldn't mention because it doesn't really count. So we had to stop the interview, but everything is recorded. So the problem I have right now, yesterday came Polymer 2.0, so I have to rearrange everything. So I did it right now, so everything is rearranged. Whether it will work or no, who cares, but this is real life. I mean, in real life also nothing works. Real life, not real wife, so I'm completely confused with your statement. Before the show, people ask me, whether I'm the evangelist. No, I was never paid as an evangelist. I never worked for Sun, Oracle, for no one actually. I always was freelancer from the beginning, never worked for a large company. The only thing I did, I really like Sun Microsystems, and Oracle is just Oracle, so I mean, it's okay, they are around. But Sun, I don't know, I just really like the whole Sun story. So this was the only relation to my evangelism. And my clients, and this is actually a talk about, and by the way, I didn't recognize this as a keynote. So it's nice that I'm speaking keynote. I think my first time at the keynote, usually I just deliver sessions. And my clients actually don't care about evangelism. And what happens to me the last 3 to 5 years, people asking me about solutions. And I'm not interested whether this is a microservice, whatever. And what sometimes happen, and this leads to disappointment, I'm hired to explain microservices. I explain microservices, and everyone is disappointed because it doesn't solve any problem. And in some projects it does, but it doesn't in other projects, not a thing at all. And even worse, so microservices somehow well defined. The another crazy thing I get lots of questions about are serverless. And this is the most, I would say, schizophrenic definition of you can probably get. So I copied this, I show you everything. And what I try to show you at the keynote today, how both converge. So like Java and JavaScript world and microservice and serverless, at the end of the day, no one cares. So I never worked, so I try to spend as much time as possible with code and still enjoy it. I had a nice conversation with a young guy before the session. Where is it? Yeah, you were in another. I say, hey, what are you actually doing? I'm actually coding, and my personal goal is like James Gosling. I don't know how old James is, probably 65 or something like this. So, and he still codes and enjoys that. I would say I would try to be 70 or 80 and still code and not forget, all these statements and how compiler works. This is my personal goal. Whether it will pay out, I don't know. Pay out not, but it should be fun with 80. I mentioned just this. I'm writing a blog. I get weekly requests for guest articles on my blog, which is a strange concept. It's just my notes blog, so there are no articles outside. So I don't know why people are asking this. Strange. Airhacks TV is the most interesting part for you. So I have the stickers as well. Don't forget the URI. If there are some questions left, join the discussion first Monday of the month and ask questions. This is this. Some workshops, and this is the most important. So I created slides because it's my keynote, right? So if we were a startup at the in projects, or workshops, architecture workshops, I get lots of questions, what is the right architecture? So should we do this or that? Do you like ESB or not? Should we use 5 years ago, OSGI or not? Now no one asks me about OSGI anymore, but it was very trendy. AOP the same or whatever. So, what I answer usually, imagine the following. We will quit our jobs, everyone. And I cannot quit, but I will just rename myself or whatever, right? So, and then we would start over and build, I don't know what, like Parlays 2.0. Or 3.0 or whatever. And what was Parlays like a video platform or whatever. Which architecture would we choose and how we would approach that? So I think for sure no one of us will start with UML diagram and we'll draw on the board, this is my screen and this is the server and then we need abstractions because everything can change. No, probably we would like to verify our idea in the first 2 days. Agreed? Or the first day, as 2 days is too long. I mean, why you have to fiddle 1 day to find whether something works or not? So this is what the first thing is, and the next question you can answer now. What's too loud? Okay. What's wrong with ESBs, for instance? Would we use ESB enterprise service bus from the beginning? Probably not. We will wait until we have the problem. What we start with probably automate everything, right? So I mean, why to do something manually if we can save time? So if you automate everything, I would write shell scripts, PowerShell scripts, or whatever we have, just to automate every step. If we automate everything, everything is documented, and we can run the whole stuff on Jenkins, and we get continuous delivery for free, right? Because what Jenkins just does, it just invokes the predefined scripts. If there are no scripts, there's nothing to do on Jenkins. So we have just behaving rationally. We already have I would say 50% of the current active buzzwords in our project, just trying to be efficient. So, so this is the first thing which you have to think about. And the next thing, what's interesting, is the serverless concept. And serverless is the next step. What it basically means. So first, this is definition from Wikipedia, which is really funny. So this is function as a service. And this is a cloud computing code execution in which the cloud provider fully manages static and stopping functions, container platform as a service, and so forth. And then, and what's interesting is the payment here. So first, so what do we would like to achieve? That you will get paid per hour and not per, or per function call or whatever. And then the next slide is even more funny. Despite the name, it does not actually involve running code without servers. This is like, we had it already, right? Like no SQL, that actually SQL would be nice, but we cannot do this. So there's not only SQL. And now every NoSQL database has something like a SQL dialect, which looks like SQL, but it isn't SQL, of course. So, so like now, so serverless means we don't like the servers, but we need them. So it's like, what it basically means is, if you're building boring startup application, like a social app 2.0, you can go without any services probably. So I don't know whether you know something like Firebase is like services at Google. So you could achieve a lot without deploying anything to the cloud. So in the enterprise, it's a little bit harder because most of my clients don't build Twitters or Facebook. So actually, what they usually they have old COBOL machine or whatever, which we have to integrate. So what usually happens is that we have a mix of both, boring stuff or boring because already solved. And the exciting stuff like COBOL, for instance, it means it runs somewhere and needs to be integrated with some challenges. And so it basically means serverless means don't reinvent the wheel over and over again. If you can go to the cloud and use it, then use it. If it's okay, if not, then not. So what happens in my projects, usually we don't build anything which was already invented yet, or at least not in my project. We build something semi-new, which is company-specific. So if you build Horinka, Palinka, and Sutka DSL-specific language for that, I don't think there is Sutka as a service on Amazon. So we will have to at least implement some functions. So about the payment, this one. This was interesting. What I did, you can go to YouTube. I actually wanted to do it right now, but this is a keynote, and I think you will actually see what I already did on YouTube. I pushed a full stack application server. Is the largest application server available right now is Payara, actually. So Web Liberty Profile, a lot smaller, Tommy smaller, Whitefly smaller, but Payara I think is one of the largest. So I built application from scratch, push it to Amazon ECS, and launch it. And so it took a few milliseconds because of Java EE. This is what I also would like to explain, why it was so fast. And the cool story is it runs on the free EC2, it's called Micro. So it is so, the application servers are so lean that you don't have to pay anything anyway. So if you are a startup, if we go with one node, which is fast enough to verify our idea, I'm pretty sure in the first year we wouldn't pay anything. So I started a few instances and forgot about them, and they're still running. This is for my clients, and I get an invoice 20 euros. So what is, and to set it in context, in some of my projects we run on 4 Glassfish, whole Europe, a huge portal with several thousand transactions per second. So what it would mean, how much money could we save? So it's the first thing, right? So if we are in the Facebook, Netflix mode, you can save a lot. If you are a startup, I'm not sure whether with serverless we would save a lot. And what you have also to think about the programming model. This is Amazon Lambda from Java, downloaded yesterday, so it's very fresh. And I performed a code review in one of my projects, and one of my clients used Amazon Lambda, and I look at the code and didn't recognize immediately this Amazon Lambda. It's like, why the code looks like, 9045, like lots of exception and stuff and bytes. And the problem with all the cloud services and Lambdas is, it sounds nice, but if you would like to implement that, this is actually not that nice. I don't know whether who knows Hadoop still. This is a little bit out of fashion. If it came out, everyone was very excited how nice it is. The truth was, the programming API, it was worse than EGB 1.0. Lots of exception and context or whatever. It's like, what are you doing? This is like old stuff. So what it basically means, if you would like to go with Lambda, you will have to implement such a code. If you would like to, if you use, for instance, I'm just using almost exclusively Java EE, you get one POJO without any annotations, and you can work with Java as you always worked. So there is no difference. So what I mean by serverless is, in my projects, and I also work with startups right now, we don't care about the infrastructure anymore. I don't like to deal with the bytes arrays and all these thread pools, forgot about this. I only would like to write the business code and make it run somewhere. This is for me serverless. And on premise, what we do on clients, it runs on Docker, and sometimes, as usual, in some projects right now on OpenShift, because most of people use Red Hat, and OpenShift is the natural extension of that. And with OpenShift, you get some kind of cloud, so it's very cloud filling with Kubernetes integrated and etcd and stuff like this. And the cool story is, without any changes, you can take the app and push it to the cloud, not a Lambda, but ECS, Google Containers, or Azure, and in milliseconds. Questions? So it's keynotes, but still interactive. Questions? No objections? This crap, it doesn't work that well. We did a startup and we failed because we focused on business logic. It was something like this? No. In my project, it's like, the first question, whether my project are reactive? Like, probably. I mean, if I have the problem, they are reactive, but if not, why not? Why I should do this, right? So how do I configure applications? Like, if there is something to configure, we configure. If there's nothing to configure, we don't configure. But what is your problem? Use case, right? And the problem we all developers have, business logic is boring. And with all the questions, reactive programming, clouds, Lambda, we can defer, the time where we have to deal with the use cases. So at the beginning of J2E, it was great. So we could spend 3 months just talking about patterns and indirections and DAOs, and then after 3 months, the business logic came. Now we have the problem, actually, we should deal from day one with the business logic, but no one would like to do this. This is my impression. So for instance, recently, microservice projects, and they played with logging framework and implemented own ring buffer, whatever. It's like, what your application is doing. And this is a simple API gateway. It's like, why you're building, 300 classes logging framework for your gateway. I don't get the point. I mean, I thought this is a logging application. And the client asked me, then we have to delete it, right? It's like, I would delete this. Right? And the coolest, one of my recent projects is actually we built Java EE software with React and HTML5 for cruise ships. And this is actually an interesting point because the whole data center was in the ship, and we can go to the ship, but the network is not as reliable that we could talk, to Amazon Lambda, whatever. So we had our own cloud. It was really like serverless, of course. So the idea of serverless but we had our own servers. So I think whether you have servers or not doesn't matter, they have to be cheap. Because the point is, your client would like to have efficient IT and would like to burn money. So the first one. For me, I would like to be productive and not to deal, this future. I would use completable future in Java, use one line and can replace the whole page with one line of code. I would like to be productive, and I wouldn't like to be dependent on Amazon Lambda, for instance. Because I'm working since 1997 with Java, and the most common task is to migrate from A to B. And I have to admit, since Java E, there was actually no migrations since Java E5, which is bad for consultants, very good for clients. Actually good for consultants because we get more exciting projects and not just migration projects. Okay, so what do we have? Serverless. So we covered serverless and what it means, despite the name is still in the servers. Yeah, and then the last slide means actually what it means in practice, that the serverless code is always mixed up with your own code. Then it's okay, then it is nothing new, because it was always the case. There was some service already existing, and new service came, so serverless is just, so. Then, what happened in JavaScript land 2 years ago, there was an article called JavaScript Fatigue, a very, very, very interesting one. And it goes like this. A few days ago, I met up with a friend, people of coffee, and say, how it's going, fatigue, family, no JavaScript. And what I did in an Angular project, so we set up the projects, and I just copied the whole project with node modules, and it took like 10 seconds on my machine. It's like, what's this going on? I think, crazy. And then I look about the node modules, there were 30,000 files. JavaScript, no kidding, this was more than 30,000. I forgot the exact number. You can go and check it out. 30,000 lines of code, files, not lines of code, lines of code, I don't even know. 30,000 files for nothing, for one placeholder. No kidding, there's no exaggeration, it's funny, but it's like it is. And this was Angular 1, and everyone was excited. Angular 2 is even worse. So, because if you download everything, yeah, it's more. But now you don't have to download everything, and this very reminds me on the OSGI craziness. So you don't even have interfaces. They even have a method API, where if you go with RX, they have to know what is the method, and it can be implemented by 5 different modules. Actually, it's only one module, but it could be more. So we had everything already in Java. So and this is the article, and the cool story is, this is the solution. It says, okay, what do we actually need? Is this provide an opinionated, author-endorsed wrapper API or library for the theoretical 90% of use cases. For instance, React, whatever, router, Redux, or whatever. Publish use cases which work, so simple use cases. Leverage folder file naming and conventions. And community-driven rapid application development. So if you think about this, actually, of course, I'm a Java guy. So Maven, all the naming is soft. We never talk in projects with a source main Java, whatever, it's source main Java. And if someone names source main Java, source whatever Java, it's like, why you are so crazy? I have nothing else to do than, renaming Maven. Then in Java E, the cool story, why I actually like Java E is not evangelism, whatever. In the startups, I don't care actually of best of breed technologies, choose the best framework. No one cares about that. We start with, actually runs already. So I have almost no resolution. I tried to fight against the tech support here, but they convinced me to have 720p serverless. So, and this is what all my projects start. I do it all the time, and in sessions or not. But the point is, we always start with that. So this is the only dependency you need, and the discussion stops. If someone asks me whether I use CXF or REST-easy or Jersey, I say, I really don't care. Stop talking, we implement now the first use case together. And this is great, because I don't know whether you know the, we have, Stefan, how much time do I have still? 25 minutes just. Parkinson law of triviality. And what it means is, the most trivial discussion costs the most. And this was a nuclear reactor, 1957, and everything was actually decided, except the color of the carpet and the entry hall, and it took, I don't know, millions to decide, because everyone wanted to contribute. It's the same in my projects. So in last project, I remember 10 years ago, we have a problem with Jersey. Therefore, we should evaluate, REST easy. So, okay, do it, I don't care. Just create use cases, automate everything. If we have the pipeline, we can always verify whether the solution works or not, okay? So let's go ahead with that. So what it means, the only dependency is not like 50 Amazon Lambdas dependencies or whatever, we have only one. And this works in the cloud, outside the cloud, and in between as well. So what I can do, of course, a little bit, I think something like this, probably, like this till boundary. I don't know how to call it, hot resource. So, and what you do, pass, and this is actually what really happens in the first few minutes. We deploy then to Docker, we create the pipeline, and we build the front-end apps. I cannot type hot. And it would be like JSON array. All and something. And you can say here, okay, return JSON. I never hack standing mode, so what I remember is just to go with the Horinka. Everything else is homework. Horinka, and the Sutka is I was told it's not even worth mentioning it. So I don't know why, but so we have this one, and so now of course Docker. How it look like? So Docker file, and actually the last in CERN I used Whitefly, and now I think I never used Tommy on stage. And copy, and the thing is target serverless war. Deployment dir. And what happens above, I have published everything on GitHub, it's called Docklands. There is one super image which just generates or just creates CentOS with Java, and another image inherits, this is the Tommy image, which never changes, and now let's build that. So, Maven clean install, this was the discussion, JavaScript fatigue the build system. In JavaScript, we will have to know to choose about, should use Webpack 1, System.js, Gulp, Broccoli, or what's the other one? Grunt, and probably others. So, so now it's built, and so we have, this would mean the first stage on Jenkins is done, Maven clean install, which means all unit tests are performed and the server is built, and then we can go Docker build minus T for tag, and voxed hot. And now I build the whole stack. It's built. The question is, why so fast? Because of Java E. No kidding. And the reason for this is the serverless is 4K, 4 kilobytes. And why that? Because everything else is in the cloud. So this is the serverless. That's my idea of serverless. I don't have, to package the whole cloud and push it to the cloud. I just focus on the business logic, and everything is already somewhere. You can say, okay, this is just marketing. Do this. So, and if you look at the images, Voxed Hot is 450 megs. You can say, you are crazy. I mean, no, this is not micro. Yeah. What I would tell you, okay, is it possible to build a half a gig in 100 milliseconds? Not on Apple machine, something else probably, right? So what I can do, Docker history. What was it? Voxed Hot. What you see here is the whole history, and you see 59 seconds ago, 4K was built, and everything was built, I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, whatever. So the cool story is, if you use serverless in Java in the cloud, on-premise or in the cloud, what happens? All clouds have Docker registry. Amazon ECS call it repository. Jelastic call it Docker registry. You build this in your local environment once. You push the environment only when Java changes or application server changes. Usually it happens 3 times a year. So you build the 400 megs per machine 3 times a year. And you push it once into the cloud. It could take 2 hours. But between the pushes, the build is crazy. So to push this to Amazon takes about 100 milliseconds. So you cannot have as bad connection to push 4K to in longer than 100, 200 milliseconds. And try that with Lambda until you zip everything and push. I mean, this is orders of magnitude slower. And the funny story is, I work with startups. I never mention Java E because they could look it up and they will find it's bloated, whatever. And then afterwards, it's like, you say, okay, we use Whitefly. Okay, we use microservice, but no one cares. Whether you use microservice or Whitefly or whatever, the most important thing is it works and it's productive. So we can, of course, run it. It should be nice, right? Run -d, -p, h2, 8080. I give it a name. Hot. Voxed hot. Oh, h2 already allocated, which is strange. Shouldn't be, but this works. So docker logs hot2. So it started, of course, in 1.5 seconds. So you could, of course, if your war is 2 gigs, it will take longer, but this is not a reasonable approach. And if we go here and say localhost, local, shit. You have to automate everything, right? Localhost 83 whatever, 8383. So we should see the Tommy, and this was, what was the name? Serverless. Serverless, I think resources is the default, and hot was the resource, and this is okay because it's Tommy. So if I go here and say -h accept application JSON, that Horinka. So this was yeah, I mean it's not that exciting, but this it would no difference to clouds. So I evaluated Microsoft Asia, Google, whatever, it's always the same. So this is the nice story. And with OpenShift, you get similar experience in-house. Now, the more interesting stuff. Let's go to React. So this is React, and if React was the first time presented at conferences, everyone said the people are crazy from Google, from Facebook. And it turned out the idea was not that bad. So what React is, this is a React with ES6, and you have to extend from React component. And this looks like by the way, I did the examples during the keynote, all because I didn't trust the internet, but this works well here. But what this means is, I create actually a JavaScript object here. And this JavaScript object has the content of 42. And this is the index.js, this is the start of everything. So imports, we get in JavaScript imports, looks like Java almost. Render template, this is the template. So this is the template, is rendered here. So and then say get element by ID app. What is the element by ID? Somewhere here, there should be an index.html. And you have div ID app, and this is going to be replaced by your app. So what React did the first time, this is actually transpiled. This is a new term, it's like generated into that. So this looks in the editor, and this is what the transpiler does. And what React implemented is sogenannt is so-called shadow DOM. So what means is all the elements are created in memory. And the shadow DOM is something like, if you know JPA, Entity Manager, exactly the same like unit of work. Whatever you do, it is changed or double buffering in images, is changed in memory first, then the deltas are computed and flushed or synchronized with the browser. Therefore, React was crazy fast and very simple. So now, this was React, and of course they have their own proprietary implementation of that, and they call it, I think, React Shadow DOM even, and React DOM at least, so they have the dependency to React. Now, Angular 2. So if you go to Angular 2, and I created it with Angular CLI, with the official environment from Google. So it looks similar. So we have app root loading to its own tag. It is going to be replaced by our app. And now the craziness starts a little bit. So in Angular they say, let's take a look at Java EE and do the same in UI. So like there's an app module, everything has to be declared here. It's like, okay, do it. WebStorm integrates automatically for you. And app component is actually this where the stuff happens. So we have a decorator, which looks like an annotation and behaves like an annotation, Java annotation. And this is a component with title AppWorks. And you see here there's a template, component HTML. And the component HTML, there's a title with the output slot. Point is, Angular 2 is more similar to React than to Angular 1. So Angular 2 works with Shadow DOM, and they use templates, which is a standard, it's a web standard. So so Angular 2 is a little bit over-engineered in my eyes for a smaller app, but what it does, it relies more and more on standards. And what a standard means is they try to build components, and the components are more and more web components. How much time do I have? 10 minutes, very good. So if we have time, we will even launch everything. If not, I will just show you the code. So now, 2 days ago, Polymer 2 came out. What we have web component standard, and the web component standard comes with web component imports. This is like you can import external stuff. We have templates where you can define like snippets or fragments of HTML. This is exactly what React and Angular are doing, and integrate them. And custom elements. This is what React and Angular are doing. It's like element which can be declared. And by the way, Polymer is also Google. So Polymer and Angular, 2 different teams at Google. And YouTube is built on Polymer, for instance. So it's not like new invention. So it's a nice project. So P2 is Polymer advoxed. So go there. And how it looks like, so we have here, this was created with the CLI. And first, there is a component loader. And this is only needed because not all browsers are able to load the elements right now. This is called polyfill. If you were at Chrome, it will always work, but not everyone has Chrome. And this is the first component, which is actually not needed. We can delete it if we have time. So, and there is the application, and the application here defines a template. It is P2 Hello World Voxed, and this is the element which was implemented or created by Polymer. And this Voxed element here, this is the actual definition. If you just look at the code, it is my element extends Polymer element, not React. So we have almost Java code. So we have static constructors. It really looks like Java, which was amazing at the beginning of JavaScript revolution. Everyone was excited how functional Java is, and everyone didn't like object orientation is crap, whatever. And the more we wait, the more JavaScript looks like Java. Actually, right now in this year, this was the first attempt to introduce this to a major enterprise project, and to say, okay, this is almost like Java. It's like, okay, no. But at the beginning, it's like we are really happy that we don't have to deal with crappy Java because of fresh JavaScript. And right now, it's okay, we get Java 2.0. So what it means is, custom elements define my element is with my element. And what it means, my element is, the name of the element is P2 Hello Voxed. This is the binding, so this hello will appear here. And the really cool story is scoping. So this template is, by the way, standard. This is a part of HTML. It is not displayed by the browser. It is just can be fetched from JavaScript or from Polymer. And what it basically means, the style here is private. So whatever you do in CSS, it has no effects on the outer application. So it's the absolute standard. So in one of my projects, we will do this because it's a huge portal and the load times are very important. And if we focus on standards, the minimalistic Polymer 2 app are 4 kilobytes. So we will have to be a little more work to do, but 4 kilobytes is worth noting. Why? Because everything is in the browser. So we won't patch the browser with React or Angular because we have the web standard. And interestingly, for me, this was like what I always use with Java EE. I don't care about all the libraries. If it's good enough, I just rely on the one dependency and we focus on business logic. And the same happens in web right now with frameworks like Polymer. And the cool story from Polymer, why I like the framework the most, the official statement from Google is go with standard first. And Polymer is going to be leaner and leaner over time. This is like complete different trajectory from Angular, like it's going more complex and complex over time, but Polymer is leaner and leaner. And if you look at this, this is more or less like just, how it's called, syntactic sugar. So now, how the absolute standard will look like without Polymer. So what I created here is web component hello works. So it's not restroom, is what WC is west component. I play with that. And this is the absolute standard. So this means this is no framework at all. This is just in the browser, nothing else. And what you see here, hello works extends HTML element, so not React component, not Angular component, not Polymer component, this is the bare metal. And constructor initialized connected callback is something like post construct, very similar to Java EE actually. Java EE should do no initialization in constructor, the same here is true. No initialization constructor, do it connected callback. And these custom elements define voxed, hello voxed. In the index HTML, you just do this. And this is the only problem we have right now, because this thing is not, this link rel import is not supported by all browsers, because Firefox is waiting right now what happens with JavaScript imports. They hope that they can use the JavaScript imports. So this is a little bit of fiddling. And this is what in the origin Polymer app, what I show you, was replaced with the web component loader to create this dynamically or not. But what I wanted to show you, so if you are a Java developer, and you have the Java EE mindset, I would say, I don't care about the tech. I would like to just focus on my business logic. Actually, great times right now. What I do in my JavaScript projects, I delete even more code than in Java EE, because in Java EE is already deleted. We have only the business logic right now. There's nothing else left. I think you don't believe in DAOs, hopefully not in DTOs anymore, right? So the time are over. But in JavaScript, I think now is the good time to start to delete all the crap. And if you build this, this won't change a lot, because if it's a standard, it will stick in browser forever. So there will be no migration project away from web components to somewhere else. The problem is, there is nothing, I mean, for instance, data binding doesn't exist here. So we'll have to use Polymer to have nicer data binding. But Polymer comes already with routing, very similar to Angular as well. So I think strategy is to use something like a Polymer, or there is, I think, Xtext from Mozilla, whatever. Polymer is the most popular one. And then using over time, this is actually the challenge, less and less frameworks. And to start that, without any build, what I created, I don't know whether you know browser sync. This is just a small script which starts a web server and says, start this on Google Chrome. So just do bsync. And it says, good morning. So this was the no build steps, no gulp, nothing, just a simple web component. Absolute standard. So, and the cool story is, how hard would it be to access the other service? And if you go to the code, there is also, I don't know whether you know, we had something like, you know, XML HTTP requests with a little bit of dealing, and still, is one pager. I always use this XHR, was called directly, but there are millions of JavaScript libraries with wrap that. The cool story is, you don't even have to do that. So what we have, there is a fetch. And this is the future. And with the fetch, I can push, hopefully I have still the, yes. I can go here and say, fetch this. And if you are ready to go, it's almost Java 8, right? Then I can say, response. And I'm really interested in response or just to show you that it actually works, log R. So, and this is not available on all browsers, but there is a polyfill again, so which makes it available. So what it means, if you know what comes, this was always my argumentation with Java EE, you can base your code on standards now, and then afterwards just delete the polyfills. And this is exactly the same mindset what we had in Java EE for years, if you think about this. Okay, so hopefully it works. So let's see whether it works. I didn't have actually to stop that. Good morning. And you see, no access control allow origin, so I forgot to install CORS. But we can actually do this if Stefan stretches the time, right? 1 minute, you see. So I just will build this with CORS, and this is my own CORS, and I show you why I built my own CORS. So now it's here. And dependencies. No dependencies. I never built this actually. So this is CORS, and if you look at that, this is 70 lines of code. While this library, I still rely on Java EE, so there is no external libraries necessary. I only use my container request filter. So if I would start this, restart Docker, I could communicate with the backend with one-liner. You won't believe how much backend libraries I saw in JavaScript projects, and fetch is the best, and there's a polyfill with one-liner. You have this is even easier than JAX-RS client in 2.0 what we have in Java EE. This is absolute standard. I think 1 minute is over. What I wanted to show you as keynote, the convergence. Actually, the mindset in JavaScript becomes to be very, very similar to this what we had in Java EE for years. Not everyone likes Java EE, but it's a different problem. So if you are in client projects, it's not about liking, about being maintainable, no migration projects. And the reason why I started with Java EE is at the beginning of 2000, there were 15 different application servers. And for me, it was absolutely impossible to learn all of them. The only chance I had back then is to learn J2EE once. And this was a huge simplification because now it's a standard. And I stick with that, and this was easy. Okay. Thank you for watching, or no questions, or what's wrong with you? If you have questions, ask me afterwards. I will stick here today. Thank you, Axel, for invitation. And it was my first keynote, so actually keynotes are also nice, so thank you.